The Jesse Clump Memorial Fund was founded in the spring of 2009 following the death of a promising young man who was a senior at Snow Hill High School on Maryland's Eastern Shore. Within weeks of Jesse's death, his mother, Kim, and a group of family members and friends created the Jesse Clump Memorial Scholarship Fund. The scholarship exists to recognize those young people who, like Jesse, exhibit a sincere willingness to put others ahead of themselves with no expectations of recognition or reward. The scholarship is unique in that nominees come from members of the community, not by direct application by the student. By 2013, the fund had provided 5 young scholars with a total of nearly $40,000. In 2011, the Board of Directors launched a suicide prevention program that complements the scholarship mission and spreads the message of hope and caring throughout the county. The Worcester County Youth Suicide Awareness and Prevention Program was born. Suicide prevention is akin to CPR. Our methodology is summed up by ASK. Ask, stay with, connect. Suicide's warning signs are readily recognizable once one learns them. Its first aid steps can be easily mastered by anyone. Like CPR, suicide prevention's practitioners serve to keep the person at risk alive and safe until trained healthcare providers can intervene. CPR doesn't require that one be a cardiologist. ASK doesn't require that one be a psychiatrist. Throughout this workshop, we'll talk about youth suicide, defined as the intentional death by one's own hand of a person under the age of 25. But its warning signs and its preventative steps apply to someone of any age who is suicidal. Do these kids look unhappy to you? Do you see faces that are despondent, sad, scared? The truth is that suicide knows nothing about race, nothing about gender identification, nothing about economics. There is a common denominator: clinical depression, and depression is easily masked by a smile. All of these kids took their own lives, 3 from our own seaside community. They may all have lived had someone been nearby at a critical moment to ask. Their suicides, like most, were preventable. Why are we even talking about suicide? Because the rate of suicide, the number of suicides per 100,000 people, has been on the rise since the 1950s, especially among young people. More people die by suicide in America than by automobile accidents. If you ask even kids in middle school, you'll be shocked at how many know friends who have talked about suicide, considered it themselves, or actually knew someone who took their own life. Do you know someone who died by suicide? Know of someone who tried and survived? Most people do. It's the 3rd leading cause of death for young people in the U.S. The first among young people who struggle with their gender identity. For everyone who dies by suicide, more try and thankfully survive, though their long-term survival may not be guaranteed. The data put numbers to the threat. You can probably put faces to it. People flock to our coastal communities because they are lauded as the land of pleasant living. But rates of suicide are high here, higher than both the state and national averages. The reasons are many. Though you may think of the area as a recreational and tourist mecca, it is largely rural, and rural areas suffer higher rates than urban or suburban communities. Rural people think of themselves as more fiercely independent and are less likely to seek treatment for depression. Just the simple logistics of getting to mental health services can be daunting. Gun ownership is also higher, and more than 1/3 of suicides, especially first attempts, are completed using a firearm. Apply the results of a 2009 youth survey and the potential impact of suicide on kids on the lower Eastern Shore strikes home. That year, over 500 Worcester County students from a student population of approximately 7,000 may have been serious about suicide. That is 1 in 14. Most who survived their thoughts or their attempts would have returned to school the very next day, with the likelihood that no one would know their despair. If you're past 30 years old, you know how much the world has changed. Modern life presents not just youth, but everyone with challenges that either didn't exist 3 decades ago or were far more rare than today. Divorce rates have risen, producing more single-parent families. Portrayal of violence in all media has increased. Pressure on kids to achieve and secure acceptance in the extremely competitive college market has risen dramatically. These risk factors and others can set the stage for suicidal thought and behavior. Social media makes it possible to anonymously spread unfounded rumors and vicious attacks to thousands with the click of a mouse. The temptation of drugs and alcohol has moved beyond inner cities to every corner of America. But while some things have changed, others remain the same. In many communities, the stigma surrounding depression and suicide remains, preventing many who are put at risk by these societal factors from seeking help. What do you think you know about suicide? Can you respond to these true, false statements? Here are the answers. False, true, false, false, false. Using the word suicide signals to the person that you are serious about your question. If they are suicidal, it will let them know that you understand. It allows them some relief to open up because someone finally is listening. Suicide can be prevented. Sometimes it takes just one person to read the warning signs and ask at the right time. A suicide attempt that is not fatal and goes untreated is a warning sign of others yet to come. Pay attention to any cry for help, spoken or unspoken. Most people at risk of suicide, when asked, admit that they just want to end their pain, not their lives. But they can see no other solution. This is a pitfall for youth, whose reasoning abilities are not yet fully developed and by their lack of adult, long-term life experiences. The portion of the brain that guides the ability to understand the consequences of our actions, controls impulse behavior, and discriminates between right and wrong is the last to mature and become integrated with the rest of the brain. Sometimes the brain is not fully equipped to deal rationally with life and death issues until age 25. The brain on the right is brightly lit, all its neurons firing and every part of the brain actively involved. The one on the left, mired in depression, is foreboding, barely functioning because of the depression. Depression, the root cause of most suicides, is a treatable disease. There is no shame in seeking help for depression, and one should never fear to suggest that a friend, a family member, should seek treatment. Suicide is caused by factors from without as well as from within. Someone with one or more of these risk factors might benefit from psychotherapy, even if not suicidal. Has the boy next door just broken up with a long-term girlfriend? It's a stressful life event. Is he a perfectionist, demanding the most of himself and exhibiting self-loathing when he fails to meet his standards? The spark that ignites suicidal thoughts may need no more than just those two pieces of kindling to become a blaze. Men and boys are up to 10 times more likely to end their lives on the first try than women and girls. Why? Because they choose more lethal means. They choose means that offer no time to change one's mind. When a trigger is pulled, there's no turning back, no time to call 911. This is why it's so important to remove the means from the depressed person's access. Secure the guns or remove them from the house. Remove anything that can be used for hanging, ingesting, cutting, and watch the person 24 hours when possible. For 80% of those who decide to take their own lives, they do so within an hour of making the decision, having experienced a crisis within only the past day, usually in an emotional and physical isolation. Most experience ambivalence just before action. Recognition of suicide's warning signs is the first step towards becoming a suicide prevention first responder. They are not always obvious. They are easy to ignore because all teens are moody, and many behaviors mimic typical teen angst. Warning signs manifest themselves as thoughts and feelings, sometimes openly expressed, but often needing the right question at the right time to become apparent. Behaviors are easier to spot. Acting out can be a cry for help. If the kid next door asks your son to take care of his dog because he won't be able to, if he offers up his baseball card collection, his prized t-shirts, red flags should be waving. Watch for sudden and unexpected mood swings, even those that appear to be encouraging. The upbeat, "I finally found the solution to my problems. I know what to do to make things better," coming from a person who is typically withdrawn, is a signal that the person may be set upon ending his or her life. Multiple warning signs, like multiple risk factors, indicate a higher level of risk. They are not to be ignored. Suicide's warning signs indicate a deep and abiding personal depression. Depression is treatable, but left to run its course, it can end in tragedy. Ask, and don't be shy about it. "I can tell that you're hurting a lot. Are you thinking about killing yourself? Are we talking about suicide here?" Using the word suicide doesn't plant the idea. It doesn't shut down the conversation. Exactly the opposite happens. "Finally, someone cares," is often the unspoken response. Stay with the person. Your job is not to heal them, but to keep them safe until a healthcare professional can step in. Only if you feel personally at risk, if there's a loaded firearm involved, for example, should you let the person out of your sight. Finally, connect them to resources that can help. There are 24-hour crisis hotlines, and in a serious emergency, there's always 911. The closest hospital emergency room is one place to begin. Confirm that suicide is a consideration by asking directly, but with sympathy and caring. Does the person have a plan? Ask. Have you decided how to do it? When? Are the means in place, the gun, the rope, a way to get to a high place from which to jump? Listen, listen, listen. Ask leading questions. The more the person talks and the more you listen, the more quickly the situation will be diffused. Answer questions and respond to comments simply. "I care" is the best response to "no one cares anymore." Tough love is not the answer. The person has already been tough enough on themselves. Just listen, empathize, keep eye contact, and your job will be much easier. Acknowledge that you understand without being judgmental. Nod your head, keep eye contact, and reflect what they say back to them. Clarify what you've heard. "I hear what you're saying. I'm sure you think that suicide is the only way you can end your pain. I know you've thought this through. Help me out here. Am I right in thinking that you don't really want to die? You just want to put an end to this horrible pain? Maybe there's another way. Can we explore those options together?" Stress that there is no shame in asking for help. Lots of people, maybe even you, have done it. Offer to stay as long as it takes and to help the person find the right therapist. "If you want me here, allow me that privilege. I'm here as long as you need me." Be prepared to refer, to transport, to support. As you listen, keep in mind that there is always underlying reluctance to take one's own life. A young man one of the few to survive a jump from the Golden Gate Bridge, said that if anyone, a complete stranger, anyone, had simply asked if something was wrong or smiled at him as he approached the bridge, he would not have jumped. You probably are not a psychotherapist, so the best thing you can do is ask that question and listen. The person has already been through cycles of self-loathing, disappointment, and guilt. Don't cast judgment on the decision. Don't say that it is wrong or that it is a sin. Above all, if asked to keep the suicidal thoughts secret, do not keep the secret. Don't suggest that in 20 years this will all be forgotten. The person isn't thinking 20 minutes down the road, much less 20 years. Don't pile on more guilt by reminding the person how many will be hurt by his or her death. The potential victim is focused on his own pain, not that of others. The feeling of guilt is, to him, just another inadequacy, another failing like those that led him to this place. Someone desperate enough and in enough mental torment to consider suicide is not likely to be freed of that hurt overnight. You can contribute to the healing by helping create supportive structures around your friend or loved one. Offer praise when you sincerely can. Rebuilding self-esteem is critical. The comfort found in the faith community is a source of healing for many. Simply by demonstrating your concern and caring as the person moves along the healing path is often the best thing you can do. Because suicide rates are rising, it is important that everyone know ASK, or one of the many other versions available. You can join the wider community of suicide prevention advocates by supporting an organization like the Jesse Klump Memorial Fund near your home. You can donate to nonprofits that do this work. There is help, no matter where you live. National organizations conduct research on suicide's threat and its prevention. Their websites report on recent news, discoveries and trends, and connect you with experts and therapists everywhere.